and welcome to another episode of Indie Game Lab Studios. Today is a exciting day because we have Ellie with us. And oh, did I unplug my? Sorry, I keep unplugging my headphones. Hi, I'm back. Hello. Um,
Hello.
Sorry about that. Yes, so as I was saying, this very professional stream has Ellie with us, game designer and of the strategy card game Worldbreakers. So, Ellie, tell us about this game.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And Worldbreakers is a card game that I've been developing for quite a while now. It's a two-player game, and thematically, it's set in Mongolia in the 13th century. So a very different place than you typically see in board games, and very different people. Most of the characters in the game are either Asian or Middle Eastern, and there is some token presence of Europeans, but it's really about all the other people that lived in that period.
Yeah, I see Marco Polo here. Was he was a real guy, and he was he an Asian? No, he was not of Asian descent, was he?
No, Marco Polo is Italian,
Okay,
and
right.
in particular, he's Venetian. So
Oh, nice.
at the time, Italy had several city-states, and Venice was one of them, a big
Okay,
trading city-state.
sweet. And it looks like we've got okay. So our players today are fans of the show. Hi, mom. Will recognize our players, Nerd and Giga. Um, it looks like they've already selected sort of some pre-made decks that are. Do the players always just play with pre-made decks, or what's the system there?
So it really depends on them, and we recommend that new players use the pre-constructed decks.
Okay.
There's four different precons, one for each one of the guilds in the game. So the game has four different guilds. Every guild has a pre-constructed deck, and on top of that, there's multiple other game modes. So there's constructed, which is similar to what you would see with living card games.
Hmm.
And then there's draft. So you
Nice.
can take all the cards, shuffle them together, and use that to draft against your opponent and build a deck on the fly. And last but not least, there is a solo mode as well, which is a
Ooh.
10 game campaign where you explore the plot of Worldbreakers, play versus an automaton, and you draft your deck as well. So as you progress through the
Sick.
campaign, you're gonna have this draft deck that you draw from, and you decide which cards to add to your deck and which cards to discard.
Nice. Well, it looks like they've picked some pre-constructed decks out. So we've got the what is this? The Muhandasat Council of
Hmm.
Engineers. Oh, it looks like some smart ladies.
Yep, that's
Nice.
a good description.
And then Khutulun.
Yes. So Khutulun is a bona fide warrior princess. She lived
Nice.
in Mongolia in the 13th century. She's one of the descendants of Chinggis Khan,
Oh,
and her costume design is inspired by what we know on about Chinggis Khan and the armor that he wore.
nice. Sick.
And the Muhandasat, they're fictional. They're not based on any
Okay.
real characters. With that said, their headquarters, which hopefully we're going to see during the game, is called Solomon's Throne. And
Oh,
that is based on a real archaeological site, which
nice.
is in the mountains of Persia.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna let's give them the go ahead to get started, and we can keep chatting about how what things are real and not real. Um, okay, you can play, and let's see their opening hands and all that. But this is exciting. This woman Kutulun, was this the one that in order for someone to marry her, he had to beat her in wrestling? Is that her like story, something like that?
Yeah,
Uh,
so legend says that Khutulun would not marry any man who could not beat her in wrestling.
Nice.
And any person that she defeated, she would get some of their horses. So they would wage their horses versus her marrying them. And legend has it that she had 10,000 horses and that she never got married.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Okay, we got some
for
opening hands now.
for the viewers at home, Netrunner is played across rounds, and every round, each player is going to get 4 turns, and they're going to alternate. So Nerd is going to get a turn, Giga is going to get a turn, and so on and so forth. And at the end of every round, there's going to be some cleanup, and then we're going to flip the round order, and players are going to, whoever was first is going to be second, and vice versa. And every turn is tiny. Every turn you do one very small action, like gaining 1 mythium, which is the game's currency, or drawing a card, or playing a card. So we're going to see the Muhandasak deck, which is a very control-ish deck. It's all about putting big followers on the board, stopping your opponent from winning, and then playing these huge location cards that give you the power that you need to win the game. So the Den of Sabers that the Muhandasat player is holding, that's a good example for a location that could give you 3 power if
And
you use
you
it
only need
right.
10 to win the game, right? So
Right.
that's a big chunk of the game right there. Holy cow! He's just playing a 5 cost thing right away. That can't
So
be
that's a
right.
good way. Maybe Joseph should communicate it that they can't actually play that yet because of the standing mechanic in the
Oh
game.
yes, two needs 2 moons.
Right. So every card in the top left could have a standing requirement. And I see they're taking back the move.
Okay,
In this
good.
particular case, the Nocturnal Reaper requires 2 standing in order to play. So you start the game with 1 standing of your guild, and different cards and different actions can give you more standing. In this particular case, the Muhandasat player is playing Moon Apprentice,
That'll
and
give
that
him
gives
standing.
them a moon standing.
Perfect. Okay, now he's ready. Except now
I
he doesn't
think
have
we
the.
got the moon thing corrected.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, but now he doesn't have enough currency to play this Reaper, but he can get some
Right.
currency.
And now he's done. So you can zoom out because now it's the other player's turn.
Oh
You
my
only take
gosh.
1 action.
Yeah, okay, so we're already over to. Okay, Mongol Quartermaster. Huge guy.
So Worldbreaker has 3 card types: events, followers, and locations. Events are one-time effects. In this particular case, the Khutulun player is playing Gratuitous Gift, which allows them to play a follower card for a discount. So that huge Mongol Quartermaster usually costs 5 mythium. In this particular case,
Oh
is
my
only going to
gosh.
cost 2 mythium.
So for those Magic players watching, this he just played a Black Lotus and powered out this massive
that's
guy.
that's one way to think about it.
Woof, 3 less for 0. I guess the current the sort of economy is a little bit different, but that just seems bananas to me. And he's gaining a standing. Does that? Oh, from here. Okay.
Right. So the Mongol Quartermaster, when you play them, you can either gain an Earth standing, or you can spend an Earth standing to do something.
Oh, he's taking it back. He's doing the
Oh, he's
eagle.
playing the Eagle Hunters instead.
He's not even doing the full value of the 3 discount that way.
Yep, he goes back
Okay.
to
Draw a
5
card.
mythium.
I liked his first play better. Just get that beast out there.
So the Eagle Huntress. Oh, he's not even playing the Gratuitous Gift.
Okay, he's just all right. We're just rewinding everywhere. Boop, boop, boop.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Eagle Huntress, similar to the Quartermaster, when she enters play, you can either gain an Earth standing or spend an Earth standing to gain a bonus. In this case, they're just going to get an Earth standing. And it's back to the Mohandasat player, whom I believe is playing the Fledgling Defender.
Stationary cannot attack. Okay, but it can still block.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll have to. I expect some combat might happen as early as this. Well, maybe not. But when combat happens, we'll talk about that. But there's attacking and blocking.
Yep.
A lot of this stuff will be familiar to the kind of veteran combat players. But I really like the twists that are in this one.
Mhm.
Ellie, can you speak about the guilds? Is there guilds in this, or
Mm.
Yeah, certainly. So, Worldbreakers has 4 different guilds, and in some ways they're similar to colors in Magic the Gathering or to factions in Netrunner. Each one of the 4 guilds has their own cards and mechanics and flow to the game. So, for example, the Earth Guild is all about recruiting followers and attacking your opponent. The Moon Guild is about controlling the board and then um, setting up these very flashy, big end game situations.
Nice. And then the other guilds. Well, are there any in these pre-constructed decks? Is there any need for the Mahandasat player to like start get building standing in like stars or void or anything like that, or is it all moon stuff?
So the pre-constructed decks are very straightforward.
Okay.
Each of them has one of the guilds. So
Okay.
whenever a card instructs you to gain standing, you can gain standing with the guild of that pre-constructed deck,
Got it.
making it easy for the players to get into the game, figure out what each one of the guild is about.
Oh, is this an attack we're seeing here? Looks. Oh no, it's not. It's
No,
just
so I
a
think,
guild.
yeah, I think they're using the Moon Apprentice ability, and the
Okay.
Moon Apprentice says that you can exhaust her to draw a card and gain a mythium. But I suspect that the Khutulun player is probably going to attack now.
Yep, they've got two twos out, and the ability of their leader will do some extra bonus fun stuff.
So Khutulun is playing Dirty Attack, and Dirty Attack says that you get to attack, and if you attack successfully, so if you attack and at
because
least one
attacking?
follower, yep, then he's gonna get some bonus mythium.
Whew.
And if you
So
quit the Dirty Attack zoom, we're gonna see the attack itself.
okay, so here's the attack. He's attacking with both of these guys. There's
Yep,
only one blocker available, and this one has one strength from Khutulun.
right. So the Muhandasat player is gonna block the Amur River armor, which means that the armor is gonna take 1 wound and is no longer part of combat.
Okay.
And the defender that the Muhandasat player used is going to get discarded. Then, God, the card art looks good. Oh, thank you. I will talk about the art in a sec once we're done with combat. And the Eagle Huntress goes through. So the other follower that the Khutulun player attacked with, they haven't been blocked, which means that combat is successful. Khutulun is going to gain 1 power. And because she played Dirty Attack, she's going to gain 5 mythium as well.
Yeah.
So this was a play that advanced Khutulun's economy and also got her closer to winning the game.
Was that a risky play? Are there a lot of things that like this moon player could have done to like stop the attack from being successful, like secret like cards from their hand that would like kind of interrupt that?
So Worldbreakers doesn't have any interrupts
Okay.
that you could play. Anything that your opponent might be able to do on your turn is on the board.
Oh, okay, that's
And
nice.
it's almost always just blocking your attacks. So when it's your turn, it's your turn.
You have like kind of perfect information.
Right.
Okay.
But the turn is tiny. Every
Sure,
turn is just one of these atomic actions. So once your turn is over, 5 seconds later, it's going to be your opponent's
Right,
turn,
yeah.
and they're going to get to respond.
Nice. And it looks like we have made it through the first round.
Yeah, so I think the Khutulun player drew a card, and now it's the end of the round, and it's called the rally phase. A few things happen in the rally phase. You ready all of your followers, you gain 2 mythium, and you draw a card. So it's this spot in the game when both players get to receive some free resources.
Nice.
One last thing that happens at the end of the round is that you flip the turn tracker. So on the first round of the game, the Mohandasat player was first, but now it's going to flip, and the Khutulun player is going to be first. And because they also finished the round, they had the last turn. Effectively, they get 2 consecutive turns now.
Ooh, can set up some sort of mini combos that way, maybe if you plan right.
Exactly. So typically turns are going to alternate, but every other round you're going to wheel the turn order, and you're going to
Yeah.
have 2 turns, one after the other. And a lot of the tension in the game, especially when just starting out, is figuring out what can your opponent do when the turn order wheels, and what can you do when the turn order wheels.
Nice. That's great. So yeah, so now 2 turns in a row for the aggressive deck. Can you attack like every turn during a round, or can you only attack like once per round?
You can attack as many times as you want. When a follower attacks, you exhaust them. You
Oh,
rotate
sure.
them 90
Okay.
degrees.
Yeah.
But if you have 4 followers and you want to attack with each of them separately, by all means, go ahead. You attack with all of your with as many followers as you want, and then your opponent blocks. So the main advantage of attacking with less than all of your followers is that your opponent is going to spend some of their blockers.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, if there's a particular follower that you want to protect, you can attack with them later in the round.
Nice. And then there's also, we haven't gotten to locations yet, but that's kind of the part that I'm like sort of most excited about. I really like the location system. It definitely I feel like I see a little bit of like the Netrunner influence in the locations, which is awesome. Um, so what is your connection with Netrunner? Are you I feel like did you work on the game Netrunner, or were you just kind of big in that community? I feel like I've seen on Twitter some Netrunner people talking about you.
Yeah, so I've been playing Android Netrunner since Fantasy Flight rebooted it.
Oh, okay.
I was the organizer for the New York tournament scene for quite a
Oh,
while.
okay, nice.
So I organized monthly tournaments. I organized regional tournaments. When Fantasy Flight had their big US tour, when Lucas Liesinger, the designer of Netrunner, came to visit New York City, I organized that event as well.
Oh, okay, sweet.
And on top of that, I also did volunteer playtesting for Fantasy Flight.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
I was involved with playtesting about, let's say, 2/3 of the cards
Oh,
that
sweet.
Fantasy Flight ended up printing before they lost the license for the game. I was also an avid tournament player. In particular, I won the Canadian National Championship in
Oh,
2014.
okay.
So that was my big 15 seconds of
Mm-hmm.
fame, driving up to Toronto and winning the championship there.
Nice.
So yeah, I was pretty involved.
That's
Well,
with
you mean
Netrunner.
your 15 seconds of fame before now?
Yes,
Yeah,
precisely.
now now this is a full hour of fame.
So this is actually an interesting decision point for the Khutulun player. Every
Got an
attack, they
attack.
get to put a +1 counter on one of their followers. And there's a few interesting options for them here. So I'm curious to see where they're going to put it, because that's going to decide how the Mohandasat player wants to block.
Yeah, we've got some. Yeah, so this is an exciting combat here. Okay, it's going on the 5/4, so now it's got 6 power.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the Mohandasat player chooses not to block anything and just keep building their economy. Oh, but that makes sense.
Yeah, just want 2 wounds. No big deal. And that one already had a wound on it, so that's okay.
Yeah, so the armor already had 1 wound. She now got the 2nd wound.
So I believe we have 2 neophytes here playing Worldbreakers for the first time. For first timers, what's the best advice there, Elli?
I think that both of them are doing a great job.
Yeah.
I think that the Khutulun player is aggressive enough to apply pressure and gain points and build their board. And on the other hand, the Mohandasat player is giving up on some power, allowing the Khutulun player to get closer to winning without losing out on their economy. They now have a very nice combo where they can exhaust the Moon Apprentice for a card and a mythium. And because they have the other card, the Nocturnal Reaper, they get a bonus mythium. So they're going to build up their position very quickly here. And it's going to be up to the Khutulun player to apply pressure and force them to waste resources on defense and on stopping them from winning.
It's a classic control versus aggro matchup.
Pretty much, yes.
Nice.
A big difference between Worldbreakers and other games with this dynamic, such as Magic the Gathering, is that the game doesn't end until it's over. With Magic, oftentimes by turn 3 or 4, you have a pretty strong idea on who's winning. While with Worldbreakers, even the control players have some nasty tricks up their sleeve that they might be able to use to catch up. So this is a good time to talk about locations.
Yeah.
Because the Khutulun player just played the Humble Underpass. And if you zoom in on that and rotate it, you can press Q.
Okay, while I'm zoomed in. Yeah.
Yeah, while you're zoomed in.
It's like going crazy. There we go. We got it.
So the way locations work is you pay the mythium cost and you play them to your table. And each location has a certain number of stages on it. So the Humble Underpass has 2 stages. When you play the location, you load these up with stage counters, and they just sit there. They don't do anything. One of the actions you can take for your turn is to develop a location. And when you develop a location, you remove the top stage counter and trigger that stage. Awesome. So in this particular case, Khutulun had an upfront cost of 2 mythium, but now for 2 actions, she could gain 2 mythium and a power, and she could gain 2 mythium and a standing with any guild. So locations are typically some combination of power and resources, but there's always exceptions. Some of them are just power, some of them are just resources, and some of them just do things, have special effects that impact the board in other ways.
Mm-hmm. So yes, theoretically, right, the locations are pretty powerful because they get you power and that's going to win you the game, but they've got a drawback, right, which is that they can get damaged or hurt by the opposing attacker, right? So you've got to be able to defend your locations.
Right. So I'm curious. I'm curious what the Mohansat player is playing. Okay, so they're playing the Alert Warden, which is a 4 strength, 3 health follower. And that should be able to put a dent on some of the Khutulun players' forces.
Okay, but it's stationary until you get, more, okay. Nice.
I think in this particular matchup, the Mohansat player is pretty much the defender.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they attack even once. They might attack once, but I think they're mostly going to gain resources, draw cards, get the most out of their Nocturnal Reaper and their Moon Apprentice, which are very effective ways to build up your board. And yeah, like any control player, they're going to want to squeeze the aggro player from all of the resources and then just win.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I see it. I see some exciting stuff kind of brewing over on this Mohansat player's side of the board. So they've got Fortifying Draw, Fortify a location. I expect that means kind of protect it from opposing attacks. And Black Lotus it. and they've got this Indigo Grotto, which is just massive. 6 power if you can protect it.
And this one in particular is stored on their Worldbreaker card. Mm-hmm. So they can't use it right now. It's just sitting there until they decide to play it.
Yeah.
With that said, they did play the
the other one.
Den of Sabers.
What do we got here? Gain 1 power, draw a card, and gain 1 standing, and gain 2 power. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. So they all they have to do is protect like 2 or 3 of these locations long enough to gain the power with them.
Yeah. So I'm actually curious what the Khutulun player is up to, how they're responding to this.
Yeah. What's their strategy? Okay. Only 2 cards in hand. Only 1 card in hand.
Yeah. So they're playing Call to Arms, and that pulls 2 followers from their deck. And it looks like the first one they're going to play is the Earth Guild Executor, which allows them to gain a standing. So typically players gain standing and this unlocks different cards in their deck.
Mm-hmm.
and they don't spend it. Typically, when you have the standing, you just keep it. It's like a leveling mechanism.
Right.
The Earth Guild is unique. The Mongols have the ability to migrate, and because they're nomadic people, that's how it's represented within the game. And when you migrate, you can spend one of your Earth standing. So that's how the Mongol
Oh,
players, the Earth players, manage that mechanic.
that's flavorful too. I like that. I saw the keyword migrate. Now I understand what's happening in game. That like in flavor wise, that's awesome.
Right. So when you use a migrate ability, you can either set up camp and gain an Earth standing, or you can migrate to a new place. You lose some of your standing and you gain a one-time bonus. And yeah, the right now the Khutulun player is just putting all of the followers out there.
Nice.
And
Yep.
we're gonna wheel, so they're gonna go first, and we'll see what they do with their forces ahead of the Muhandasat's turn.
Okay, well he's got some blockers too, so very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, the Muhandasat player has a lot going on, so
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what's gonna happen.
And the blocker, you have a kind of a pretty big advantage from what I've seen being the blocker, because you get to choose where each of your blockers are going, right? Like, so which fight you're picking with each of your cards. So you can line up some pretty favorable things, it seems like.
And this is pretty much the spot where the Khutulun player should start thinking about attacking with 1 or 2 followers each time, so that they can get the most out of their special ability.
Oh yes, every time you attack, Khutulun does her wrestles with you.
With that said, in this case, they're just choosing to attack with everyone, which is an interesting choice. Could you scroll up a bit? Okay, they don't have their location anymore. They used all of it. But
okay,
let's see how the Muhandasat player is blocking. It looks like the Dissolution veteran is blocked by the Nocturnal Reaper, so the veteran is gone. It looks like the Moonguild Apprentice is trading with the Champion of the Two-Man.
Okay.
And the Champion of the Two-Man has a special ability called Overwhelm. So even though she was blocked, the Khutulun player is still getting 1 power.
Wow. Okay, 4/3 blocks the 5/4. Okay, that's a solid trade.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, and yeah, and just eat that 2/2 with your 2/5. So the Overwhelm was the only one that got through. But hey, a power is a power, and but what that doesn't do is hurt your Den of Sabers. Overwhelm.
Right. In this particular case, I think that the Khutulun player was a tad too aggressive by attacking with everyone.
Yeah, their board is gone.
He knows that the Muhandasat player wants to spend their actions developing the locations, which is mostly going to give them power. I think this was a good opportunity to attack with just 1 or 2 followers at a time, so that the blocker doesn't get all of the favorable blocks. Because he attacked with everyone, the blocking players could just get all the best blocks on all the followers.
Do you get the response abilities of these cards while they're exhausted?
You do, yes.
Okay. Nice. So yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say, so like making them exhausted didn't even actually. It would have stopped it if they had abilities, but the strength of these guys looks like it's in their responses, to be honest. So, yeah.
Yes.
I think I would be happier being in the control players or Muhandasat players seat right now.
Yeah, the Muhandasat is in a great spot. The Khutulun player doesn't have many cards that just remove opposing followers. There's no lightning bolts and fireballs and earthquakes like Magic the Gathering. It's really about them attacking in a way that forces the Muhandasat player to make unfavorable blocks. And this is especially relevant when there is a location on the board that the Muhandasat player doesn't want to get damaged.
Right.
So yeah, I'm curious to see what the Khutulun player is going to do now. They're pretty much behind, but they can still pull off a comeback if they spend a couple of let's say a round rebuilding.
Yep, got it. I mean, they're kind of almost halfway to victory, right? 4 power is not nothing, so they just got to sneak 6 more guys through somehow.
Yeah, and they can do it. They have followers with Overwhelm.
Oh right.
They have cards that are pretty much guaranteed to get them something.
He's not bothering to rebuild. He's just like, play one guy, attack with one guy. Love it.
Yeah. In this particular case, I would have played the card in his hand, the Earth Guild Apprentice, because that would build up his board and give him some resources.
Oh yeah. And yeah, he's got enough. He's got 3 standing with Earth. He's got enough to start using migrate ability. Hey, that's the hero card. That's the art we see all over.
Yes. So that's a good point to talk about signature cards. You notice this particular card has a star in the top right. And this means that this card belongs to Khutulun. So when you build your deck, whether it's constructed or draft, you can include cards from other guilds. So let's say your Worldbreaker is Khutulun, you're playing the Earth Guild. You can include cards from the Void Guild or from the Moon Guild and just gain that standing. But some cards have a star on them. These are signature cards. You can only play them in particular decks, in a particular Worldbreaker deck. And this serves a few purposes. One, it broadens the theme of that particular Worldbreaker and what they're about. Two, it means that when you draft your deck, let's say your draft didn't go amazingly well, you know you're going to get 3 good cards that work well with each other. So even if you're a newcomer to the draft, even if you're a casual draft player, the core of your deck is going to be strong.
Nice.
And 3, when you sit down versus an opponent, you have some idea of what could be in their deck based on the Worldbreaker. There's a set of 3 cards that you know they're going to have, and there's cards that belong to other Worldbreakers that you know that they're not going to have.
Nice. We've got a question from chat. How long has the game been in development?
That's a good question, and it depends on how you count. So I've been working on some version of this since 2016, and initially this was envisioned as a Netrunner reboot or expansion.
Oh.
So my initial goal was to just build some new version of Netrunner. But so this is an interesting spot.
Sweet. Here we go.
So it looks like the Muhandasat player attacked last turn, thinking that the Khutulun player won't be able to do anything about it. But they used the signature card we discussed to play a follower and immediately attack.
One action and a play and attack. That's sneaky. I love it.
And it gave them a few things. One, they got a rebate of 1 mythium because the Earth Apprentice says that when she hits, you get a mythium. And more importantly, they damaged the Den of Sabers that the Muhandasat player had on the board. So the Muhandasat player gained 2 power by attacking, but now they lost these 2 power that they would have gained from Den of Sabers. And this goes back to my previous point on how the Muhandasat player will almost never attack in this matchup. It's too risky, and also they don't need to. They can just build their board and develop locations.
Wow, that's an exciting card.
So yeah, the game has been under development since 2016. The big push was in May last year, and that's where I decided to just get away from the Netrunner idea, rebuild a new engine, a new game, a new theme. And the big breakthrough was this snake-like turn structure where you alternate between the two players. Once that was in place, all the other dominoes followed to create the tension and dynamic of the game. There was also a question about the art.
Oh, yes.
So one of the main reasons I love card games is because they're pretty. And in this particular case, it was important for me that Worldbreakers is pretty as well. So I commissioned 14 different artists to work on the art. The game is going to come with 112 unique cards. Every card has its own illustration, and it involves some artists that viewers might know from Netrunner and from Arkham Horror. So we have Emilio Rodriguez, who drew for both of the other games, and we have a couple of other artists that already drew for established card games.
Amazing. Yeah, this art. So we got some placeholders still in here, but I mean, that's to be expected. We haven't released this thing yet. But
And when the Kickstarter launches, and this is a good time to point out, Kickstarter is launching on March 1st, and I'm actually going to put a link to the landing page. So if you're
okay,
interested,
great. Yeah.
I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed. When the Kickstarter launches, the game is going to be done. So from as soon as the Kickstarter is finished and hopefully funded,
Yeah.
we're ready to print. There's not going to be a delay as we playtest,
Right.
a delay as we commission art. Everything is going to be in there.
Love it. That's it. I feel like that's important. That's exciting too. I mean, I'm sure you're going to fund. Like I've seen a lot of hype for this game, and I mean, anyone watching sees it's a solid game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure we're going to fund. I just want to know what kind of bells and whistles we get when it overfunds by 10
I was
times.
going there too. Do we have expansion plans, Ellie? What's on the horizon? The 14th century?
So there are expansion plans, and in the event that we fund and we go well, I really hope that we get to post an expansion soon.
Nice.
That's a big part of it. I also have organized play plans, so
Ooh.
I hope that I can get some stores on board, and I have ideas for organized play kits and different formats that players will be able to join, and it's going to be a mix.
Where are you located? If somebody's local would want to be involved in some kind of local rollout or play testing and stuff like that.
So I'm based in Fort Lee, New Jersey, just across the bridge from New York.
Oh, nice.
And I'm speaking to stores in several locations in the US, and I started reaching out to stores in Europe and Australia as well. So we'll see how it goes. Full disclosure, as a new creator, getting to stores is non-trivial.
Sure.
But some of them are getting excited, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And
any show plans this year? Will the game be shown at any conventions or anything?
As soon as the campaign is done, I'll get a better idea of the print schedule, and then I'm going to make decisions. I've demoed it in 2 conventions so far, in PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia, and also in Midwinter Gaming Convention, which was in Milwaukee, and got some pretty strong opinions from players.
Nice.
Strong isn't positive.
We must have missed that, Garth, because Garth.
Yeah, we were at PAX Unplugged. Were you in the Unpub room? Where were
I was in the Unpub room, yes.
Okay, nice. I must have missed you. Darn.
So just to look at the game, the Mohondasat player just played the Indigo Grotto, which
That's the big one.
That's the big one, yes. That's the one that has 6 power on it. And typically when they play it, that's when they intend to finish the game.
Yep.
So it's quite possible the game is going to be over in just a few turns.
Oh, wow.
Which is typical.
Are these decks kind of small? I didn't notice that, but he's only got 11 cards left. How big are the decks in this game?
So deck construction is 30 cards.
Oh, yes.
And
small.
You have your Worldbreaker, you have your 30 cards, and that's pretty much it. There's no duplicates. So every card is going to appear at most once in your deck.
Love it. Okay.
Which leads to an interesting dynamic. Once you have a better idea of the card pool, you know that if your opponent played something, that's it. It's gone.
Right.
You don't have another one.
You don't have to worry about, he doesn't have, this control player doesn't have to worry about the play a guy and immediately attack card anymore. That's right. That's cool.
So I see that the Khutulun player is slowly rebuilding their board.
5 power, 3 units. The defense, I think the window is closed though. We've got
the defense on the Muhandasite side is pretty formidable.
Yeah. Some big butts, as we say. 6 health, 5 health. Okay, he's going for it though. Maybe he's got a trick up his sleeve.
Yeah, and he should try to at least leave a dent.
Yeah.
Force the Muhandasite player to make some blocks. Do you remember who started? Who was first on the first round?
On the first round, good question. Anyone in chat remember who started? Joe, this was your job.
I'm trying to remember I'm trying to calculate which round this is.
Oh yes. Let's see. I'm guessing 4th.
Yeah, I think it's either 4th or 5th.
Okay. What's the average length of a game?
A game is usually between 6 and 8 rounds.
Oh, okay.
and it translates to 30 minutes or
Nice.
so.
Yeah, it
So
depends. I don't like the minute length that like so many games are defined by, because it really, I mean, I play with, like, when my wife and I play games, like, it's lightning fast. Her and I just like
mhm.
um take our turns in seconds. But then, you've got other people that like to, think and chill. So I like the round definition. So 6 to 8 rounds. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna be 6 to 8 rounds.
that's cool. I mean, this one might be on the shorter side, depending on if this Mahadasat player can just hold their ground long enough to get this grotto.
Yeah, and we started the game about 30 minutes ago, so
Yeah,
it's shorter on the round side of things, but for game length, I think they're pretty much around average.
yeah. Well, we to be fair, I told them to kind of play it slow so we can keep up. But
One of the one of the things that make the game fun, in my opinion, is that it's very dense.
Mhm.
So 6 to 8 rounds, you have 4 turns every round. You're gonna have something between 25 and 30 turns that you can take, and many of these turns are gonna be impactful.
Yes.
So there's very little downtime. There's very little opportunities to just say, my action right now is not that important.
Yeah.
Um, Usually you have to think ahead. You have to predict what your opponent is going to do, and you have to be very efficient and very optimization focused with your sequencing,
Hmm. I
which
haven't
is an
seen
idea.
I haven't seen many players just spend an action just gaining one Ethereum or just drawing one card. Like, I feel like they've done a good job of like keeping their economy going in a more impactful way by like using cards to gain the resources. I really like that there's like
Yeah.
a system there. Look at this hand too. It's just stacked with good stuff.
Yes. The control player definitely had the upper hand in
Oh
this
yeah.
particular game. And I think a lot of it came down to that pivotal turn I mentioned,
Yep.
where the Khutulun player just attacked with everything. I
Hmm.
think that was too aggressive.
Yep. I mean, there's a whole player. I mean, there's a lot of aggro players out there, right? Though I think they're gonna be happy to have this deck and just be like swing,
Yeah.
swing. Um,
So I've been demoing Worldbreakers to a lot of Magic the Gathering players,
yeah.
and it's really funny to see their reaction. They sit down and they're like, yeah, I get the rules. It's like Magic. It's
Hmm.
straightforward. And then they just lose again and again and
Yep. Yep.
again. Um, and this actually relates to the question from the chat. What distinguishes this game from Magic? I would say that Worldbreakers is much more tense and is much more based around sequencing and planning ahead. Whoops.
Okay, there we go. Oh, is this an attack from the Mahandasat player?
Yeah, I think they're just closing the deal by
Oh, they're at
making this
9.
big
Okay.
attack.
Yep.
So a big difference from Magic is that the game is much more intense and much more about sequencing and timing. So when you play Magic, even at the competitive level, you're going to see 2 or 3 windows where that really decide the game. And with
Sorry, my, my,
Worldbreakers,
my creative director just walked in. Sorry. Bye. Sorry to
so so with Worldbreakers, there's many more decision points that are going to decide the outcome and what's going to happen.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I think I've noticed there's less. I like that there's. I feel like you have more information to go on when you're playing this game too. From what I've seen, like there's less like wondering, just driving your brain crazy thinking about all the things your opponent could have or couldn't have. You can play around some stuff, but like
Right.
you don't have to worry about it too much. You see what's on the board. You can make some strategies. I like that.
Yeah, and unlike Magic, so Magic, the resources are lands that you draw from your deck.
Yeah.
And if you don't draw them or you draw the wrong types
Ugh.
of lands, you just can't play the game.
Yep.
You just sit there and you don't do anything. That's never going to happen with Worldbreakers because you can
Ooh.
always spend a turn to gain a mythium or draw a card.
Ding, ding, ding. We got 10 power.
Yep. So we're actually going to wait until the end of the round. That's when victory is decided. So ostensibly, the Khutulun player could catch up, but in this particular case, I'm afraid they're just way too far behind.
Doesn't look like it, yeah. Well, what do they got in their hands? Nope.
Another point from the chat is that Worldbreakers is not a collectible card game. So
yes.
There's no booster
Very
packs.
Important.
There's no chase rares. It's a game. It's a board game. You buy the box. You get all the cards. You can use them for the precons. You can use them for the draft, and you can use them for constructed.
Nice. What? Yeah, that's a good question. I'm surprised Joe didn't ask it yet. How many cards come in the box?
So the box is gonna come with about 160 cards.
Okay, nice.
And 112 of them are for the draft. Then there's another 20 cards which are duplicates, and their purpose is to allow 2 players to play constructed from just one box.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So unlike other LCGs where both players need a copy, with Worldbreakers, you can pretty straightforwardly split the cards between the players.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the duplicates are for.
Nice.
And there's going to be about 40 cards for the solo mode. And that's going to be the campaign and the cards for the automaton, and that's going to be part of the box as well.
Nice.
I think they're doing some sort of post-game chat.
Are they? Joe, bring them over to.
The round.
Oh, they're finishing out the round. But yeah, Joe, bring them over to the Zoom so we can chat with them. We've got 10 minutes here. Whenever they're done. We need to. Who was the? I don't. Their name is hidden. Oh, Giga. Giga was the aggro player. We need to scold Giga for being too aggro.
All right, our players should be joining us.
Sounds good.
I'm here.
I hear Giga. I hear Nerd. Hey, welcome, guys.
Welcome back.
So, I was jealous of Nerd's game plan the whole time. Like, just having this sick, like, just all these big, swingy, nasty effects. I think if I was a player, that's the seat I would want to be in. How did you guys like kind of your deck's strategies?
I mean, that's the reason I picked this deck.
Nice, yeah.
By the way, if you want about talking about swinging cards, look at this card.
Woo! That's a big one. That's like it's a board wipe of either and a versatile board wipe. I definitely want to like look through all these cards and see all the. Ellie? What do you think is the most powerful card? It's a dumb question, but what do you think is the most powerful card in the game?
I don't know if I can answer that. Okay. We've done a lot of design work to keep everything interesting and situational, and there's 4 pre-constructed decks. So even if you don't plan to do any deck construction, you're gonna have 6 matchups, and each of these matchups play differently. Each of these matchups is balanced.
Nice.
So even if you just use the precons, there is a lot of gameplay in that box. So that was a big part of it. Some cards are more flexible, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways they're stronger, but other cards, they might be less flexible, but in the right situations, they could win you the game or push you forward pretty closely.
Giga, did it? What their favorite card was during the game? What card did they really enjoy either plotting with or playing?
Yeah, Giga, what was your favorite card? What were you trying to do over here?
To be honest, I never had options.
No,
turn 1 I had cards. After that, it was literally like I'd have 1 or 2 cards in my hand at most ever.
Yeah.
I never had options.
Right.
I still enjoyed the card that let me just auto attack.
Yeah.
But follow our auto attack, that was fun. But I didn't. The physical stuff I had was just never enough to give me anything helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And Giga, I'm curious, are you a Magic the Gathering player?
Not at all.
Not at all? Okay. So we were actually talking about it as you were playing the game. there was a turn where you attacked with all of your followers on the first turn. And as you were doing it, Joe and I were talking about, Garth and I were talking about how you shouldn't do it. So I think that was a big decision point that set you back, and it was really difficult to recover from. And I think that's where your feeling came from, where you didn't have options. So I can empathize with what you said there.
So yeah, I'll give that I 100% believe I could have played better, and I believe that I shouldn't have attacked quite as much. But also, I never had cards in hand.
Yeah.
Even if, I could have not attacked and had more stuff in play, but even if I had stuff in play, I still didn't have options to actually do interesting things. So, and while I agree, I did not play super well. I agree with that. I deserved to lose either way. I also don't think my draw was helping at all.
Yeah. I think
because I drew all my migrate at the beginning and all of my standing after that.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw you you opened with the migrate stuff. I like the versatility of migrate, but like you didn't actually get to use any migrate effects, did you? You were just gaining.
I used one.
Okay, you got one. Okay, nice.
But that one I paid for standing to do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Because I had like 12 money at the time.
Got it.
Oh yeah, so I've just been alerted that I accidentally dodged the question about the campaign contents. So the base pledge is going to be $30, and that's going to cover the game, the solo mode, the draft, all of the different components. And on top of it, we're going to have different add-ons. There's going to be 2 different playmats that you could pick from.
Nice.
There's going to be a deck box. There's going to be a card doubler. If you want to draft with 4 players instead of 2 players, then you could get this chunk of cards that will extend the game from 2 players to 4-player draft.
Nice.
And I'm looking into either acrylic tokens or metal tokens. I hope I'll be able to swing them. I'm not sure, because I think it could be pretty cool to add them as well. But as of right now, there's definitely going to be the deck box, the playmats, and the card doubler.
Amazing. Yeah. I think that's going to be cool. Yeah, I think we're going to fully fund, and we're going to fund enough to unlock all these sweet reward levels.
I hope so as well. So I am going to post the landing page once again.
Nice. Yes, thank you.
For those of you that So Captain Frisk is asking, regarding reduction of being mana screwed from magic, can the same thing happen by failing to draw locations? Are there any standard heuristics for deck construction in terms of follower location breakdown?
Great question.
That's a great question. And just to put it out there, this is still a card game, and you could get a bad draw and not get too much. That happens with card games, unfortunately. One of the things that help is that the deck is pretty small.
Yeah.
So you saw this was a pretty quick game, and yet the Khutulun player draw 2/3 of their deck.
11 left, 8 left over here.
Yeah. So even in a quick game, you're going to draw most of the cards in your deck. And if it's a control versus control matchup, you're almost guaranteed to see your entire deck. So it's going to be a question of order, not a question of whether you're going to get it or not. You're going to have time to draw the stuff you need. Also, there's different cards that help you find what you need. So for example, the Marco Polo player has a mechanic that allows him to find particular card types. So he doesn't look at the cards and search for them like in Magic the Gathering, but he can say, I want a location. And he's going to flip cards from the top of the deck until he finds the location that he needs.
Nice.
For standard heuristics for deck construction, it really depends on your Worldbreaker and what you're trying to achieve. The Khutulun deck is like 23 followers, I think, or 24 followers, while the Marco Polo deck has like 10 location and I think 11 or 12 followers in it.
Wow.
So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to do it. The Ruknadin Kurshach pre-constructed deck has a nice mix of followers and actions, and it only has, I think, 4 or 5 locations in it. Eventually, he wants to play a location to win, but he usually only needs 1.
Interesting.
So having 4 or 5 locations is a nice balance that gives him that flexibility.
I think it seems to me that the RNG is a little bit reduced as well because you always have access to these basic actions. Like if you're just stalled, you have like your engine kind of fizzles out because your opponent messed with you in some way. You can always just choose to gain one resource or draw one card. So you're never going to get completely stuck or like completely like mana screwed as in Magic. You always have outs. I like that.
And that's where timing comes into play. One of the skills you develop as a player is assessing how close is your opponent to fulfilling whatever plan they had in mind. And if you have time, then instead of applying pressure, maybe you should build up your board. And the way you build up your board is by spending actions to do it. So in some way, it's a question of how you want to allocate your time.
Right. Love it. Graphic design is great too. I love the textures and all the cool little tokens. This is sweet.
Yeah, and I see that Joe is asking, how can people try Worldbreakers? The game is on Tabletop Simulator and the game is on Tabletopia. And in particular, Tabletopia has the draft and a one game of solo mode. So if you want to try these particular modes, you can go on Tabletopia and do it there.
That's awesome. And yeah, and of course, sign up, check out worldbreakers.com, sign up for the Kickstarter. And yeah, there's all sorts of ways. I think the marketing push is sort of ramping up, right? Like people are gonna be sick of hearing about you over the next couple months.
I hope so.
Page up.
Sorry?
Kickstarter preview? Or do we have that page up yet?
Yeah, I can link that as well. Let me copy and paste the link. But yeah, everything is up. The Kickstarter is up. The board game gig is up. So if you do have a chance to try the game, I would really appreciate it if you go on Board Game Geek and rate it.
Oh, good
just
call.
Based on your experience. And here is the Kickstarter.
Except Giga, you shouldn't rate it because it sounds.
Giga, you're welcome to rate it as well.
It sounds like you might be a control player at Giga. Is that? I feel like I think this is a room full of people that just wanted to be on the
control side of things. Yes. Maybe we should have tried Marco Polo versus Mandasat.
I would be generally inclined to agree with that with that assessment, but
nice.
Don't worry, I can also be aggressive if I decide to do so.
Yeah.
And I prefer being controlled since I like to play big, long games and like combos.
Yeah.
But I can also be aggressive if needs to be.
Nice.
We can set up a rematch when the Kickstarter is.
I know, rematch. I mean, I'm ready to play a rematch right now, but maybe I'll stop the stream first.
Yeah, you can certainly do a rematch.
Yeah.
And you can try the Muhandasat versus the Marco Polo matchup. It's weird in a good way. So it plays very differently than what you typically expect from these type of card games, which are often about like bashing your opponent again and again. The Marco Polo versus Muhandasat matchup is much more about positioning and finding windows and deciding whether you're safe enough to fulfill your plan.
Right. With both players having so many answers, you want to make sure. I definitely want to play that soon.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. We're going to drop all the links in the channel. Also, don't forget to follow us, join our Discord at Indie Game Lab. Maybe Joe can drop some of those in the chat as well. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next week when we have Joe. What do we have next week? Something cool.
Psychobabbles.
Psychobabbles.
Nice.
Okay. So, my dog says it's time to end the stream. So cheers everyone. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Elli. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks everyone. Have a good day. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're clear.
Cool.
Well done.